Ladies and gentlemen, the Tuesday, March 7th, 2023 meeting of the Beverly Planning Board is hereby called to order. Before we start things formally, we have some people here in our audience, and I just wanted to let you all know that if you are here for the Homes project, they have asked to withdraw their plan without prejudice. I can't speak for the board, but I suspect it will be allowed, so there will not be a presentation or anything like that tonight on that property, on that plan, because they're going to withdraw it. So I don't know if you were here to talk about that, but as I said, we anticipate that they have asked the plan to be withdrawn, and the board will vote at that time, but I frankly don't see any reason why it wouldn't be allowed for them to withdraw the plan. So that being said, I just also want to let people know that one of our board members, George Gomes, is joining us remotely. And because George is joining us remotely, that requires us to do our votes by roll call instead of by a show of hands. So with that being said, we'll begin our agenda. Do we have any?
Just confirm that we can hear George.
Oh, yeah, sure, thank you. George, can you hear us?
I can, Madam Chair. Sorry to make everyone have to vote by roll.
No, that's not a problem. Just happy you could join us for this evening. Okay, so do we have first call to order? The first agenda item is any subdivision approval not required plans. Do we have any?
No.
Okay. I think it makes sense for us board members to move our last agenda item up to the next agenda item, number 2, because so many things will be dependent upon our changing that meeting date. So, so if you would draw your attention to agenda item number 12, which is an amendment to our meeting schedule, excuse me. We are looking to change our March 28th, 2023 meeting to March 29th, 2023. And I think we just need to take a vote on that, make sure everybody approves of that. Does anybody want to speak about that? Is there any discussion? No. Okay, then I will call the roll on that. So again, a yes is that you are in agreement to move the March 28th, 2023 meeting to March 29th, 2023. So we'll call the roll on that. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Rodney Sinclair?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson? Yes, thank you. So that means our next meeting will be held Wednesday night, March 29th, 2023. That being said, we'll move into public hearings. I would welcome a motion to recess for public hearings, please. So moved. I've got a motion by Flannery. Do I have a second? Second by Sinclair. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Rodney Sinclair?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. Okay, we are in public hearing.
I have to leave.
Yeah, I know.
Notice is hereby given that in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, and Sections 300-91, 300-94, 300-98, 300-50, and 342C1I warehouses of the Beverly zoning ordinance, the Beverly Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, March 7th, 2023, at Beverly City Hall relative to special permit number 18322 and site plan review 15922 for a proposed 15,000 square foot warehouse and storage unit. The applicant is Oak Forest Farm LLC, 19 Ocean Ave, Magnolia, Mass. 01930. The property is located at 128 Boulder Lane in the IR zoning district and the Water Supply Protection Overlay District, and is shown on Assessor's Map 73, Lot 8. The application and plans are on file in the Planning Department and available for public review.
Thank you. Is there anyone here appearing on behalf of the applicant? Well, that's interesting. I mean, my understanding is that the applicant has filed a request to...
I have it somewhere. I did receive a letter today from the applicant's attorney. They are working on, I think I put it in the file, some interior modifications in order to address some of the comments that were received from various comment letters, and so they felt it was too early. Those are not far enough along in order to present the project. They wanted to resolve everything, and so they request a continuance to the next meeting.
And they feel they'll have everything completed, or what they need to complete by March 28th?
That is what I heard, yes.
29th, I'm sorry, thank you. Oh, my gosh. Okay, for those of you who might be here for that, I just want to make sure that everybody understands. The applicant has gotten feedback from various boards, the Beverly Salem Water Board, I know for one. I believe the Wenham Fire Department weighed in, the Beverly Fire Department weighed in, and the applicant has decided to go back and perhaps change some things, probably, I would guess, frankly, to address the concerns of the Water Safety Board as well as the fire departments of both city and town. And so they have asked us to continue this public hearing until our next meeting at March 29th. So I would welcome a motion on that, please.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Move that we continue the hearing for 128 Boulder Lane, Oak Forest Farm LLC to our March 29th, 2023 meeting.
I have a motion by Mr. Beckwith, a second by Ms. Flannery. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Rodney Sinclair?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. Okay, so this public hearing on 128 Boulder Lane is continued until our next meeting, which is March 29th, 2023. Our next public hearing, next agenda item is the continuation of, oh no, this is the first public hearing on this, right? So I need our planning director to read the notice, if you would, please.
Notice is hereby given that under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, and Sections 300-40C 1A, 300-40D 2F, 359D, 391, 398, and 300-102 of the Beverly Zoning Ordinance, the Beverly Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, March 7th, 2023 at Beverly City Hall relative to special permit number 18423, site plan review 16023, and inclusionary housing application 24-23. The special permit is required for a building greater than 55 feet and for relief from the parking requirements. The applicant is proposing to develop Homes Phase 2, consisting of a 3-story, 69-foot, 11-inch, and 70,000 square foot addition to be built using air rights on top of the existing MBTA garage. The proposed project contains 70 residential units, 8 of which will be restricted at 80% of area median income and will be connected to the existing Homes Beverly at 110-114 Rantoul Street. Located at 100 Rantoul Street in the CC zoning district and the Height Overlay District, and shown on Assessor's Map 4, Lot 83, the application and plans are on file in the Planning Department and available for public review.
Is there anyone here for the applicant?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Ann Reynolds, Rubin and Redmond for the on behalf.
I'd ask you to speak into the mic,
On behalf
thanks.
of the applicant, Barnett Beverly LLC. As referenced earlier this evening and per our letter request submitted to Darlene this morning, the applicant would like to withdraw his application and is requesting leave to withdraw the application without prejudice.
Okay, thank you. Board members, there's a request from the applicant to withdraw their application without prejudice. Are there any questions for the applicant's attorney, for Attorney Reynolds?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
For the benefit of the people in the audience, without prejudice, with prejudice, can you explain the difference between?
Without prejudice would allow the applicant to refile a request for the same development in the future. And the goal is, after meeting with members of the community and the mayor and other boards, to try to work with the city and see if a project at the property is feasible. But we want to make sure that we've kind of taken into consideration all of the concerns that are currently at issue in the city right now and that have been coming up. So we're just trying to be a good neighbor and a good citizen and really take the time to assess the feasibility of the project before pushing forward.
Do you have any sense as to the amount of time that is going to take? Do you have a window that you're looking at?
No, not yet. It'll take some time. I think parking being one issue we need to sort of assess, and then just generally sort of financing for construction right now and how long. I don't, that is a little outside of the scope that we've talked about to date with the applicant, but it may take some time before they'd be ready to pursue any construction.
Okay, thank you.
And I think obviously we're just opening the public hearing tonight. There's been no steps taken, so it doesn't make any sense that it should be withdrawn with prejudice, because we haven't gone anywhere with it, so. So I would welcome a motion on this, please. Ms. Flannery?
Madam Chair, I move to grant the request to withdraw without prejudice the applications for special permit number 184-23, site plan review number 160-23, and inclusionary housing application number 24-23 at 100 Rantoul Street for the applicant Barnett Beverly LLC.
I have a motion by Ms. Flannery. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Beckwith. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Rodney Sinclair?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public hearing is site plan review number 161-23, and inclusionary housing application number 25 for the property at 103 Cabot Street. The applicant is Cabot Park LLC, calling for the redevelopment of an addition to the existing 4-unit residential structure and convert the property to a mixed-use structure containing a total of 11 residential units and 1 office unit. And I believe this is our first time with this public hearing, so if I could ask the planning director to read that public notice, please.
Notice is hereby given that in accordance with Section 300-98 of the Beverly Zoning Ordinance, the Beverly Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, March 7th, 2023, during a public meeting that begins at 7 p.m. at Beverly City Hall, 191 Cabot Street, Beverly, Mass., relative to site plan review number 161-23. The project consists of redevelopment of an addition to the existing 4-unit residential structure and converting the property to a mixed-use structure containing a total of 11 residential units and 1 office unit. The applicant is Cabot Park LLC, 8 Enon Street, Beverly, Mass. 01915. The property is located at 103 Cabot Street in the CC zoning district and is shown on Assessor's Map 5, Lot 288. The application and plans are on file in the planning department and available for public review. And just to clarify too, just the inclusionary housing permit isn't listed here. That doesn't require a public hearing. We usually just combine them.
Yep.
But
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Connor Walsh, here tonight from Glovsky & Glovsky, offices at 8 Washington Street here in Beverly, on behalf of Cabot Park LLC, who is the owner of the property located at 103 Cabot Street here in Beverly. I'm joined tonight by Jesse Jalbert, who's the principal of the applicant, as well as Stefano Basso of SV Design, the project's architect, and Bob Griffin of Griffin Engineering, who's the project's engineer. So as was mentioned, we're here tonight seeking site plan review for the approval of the applicant's proposed redevelopment of, in addition to, the existing multifamily structure located at 103 Cabot. The applicant is seeking to redevelop that 4-unit structure at the property and construct an addition to the rear of the structure to house 7 new 1-bedroom dwelling units for a total of 11 apartment units, 2 2-bedrooms and 9 1-bedrooms, as well as a professional office space located along the frontage of Cabot Street. As you'll see on the plans, there's an existing garage on the property that will be demolished as part of this project. Darlene, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the project has been designed to comply with the dimensional requirements of the zoning ordinance. 13 parking spaces are provided on site to meet the required parking for the 11 residential units, with 2 of the parking spaces being tandem and to be assigned to one of the 2-bedroom units in the property. The 3 required parking spaces for that office unit will be provided at the Franklin Place Municipal Lot, which is located, between Franklin Place and Washington Street and is within 500 feet of the property. Further, one of the 7 new residential units will be designated as affordable at 60% AMI, consistent with the city's recently approved amendment to the zoning ordinance.
Mr. Walsh, Attorney Walsh, did you say 60 or 80?
60.
Okay.
And that's consistent with that recent change where this is between that 6 to 9 new unit range. So I'll note that the project has been presented to and reviewed by both the Design Review Board and the Parking and Traffic Commission. Each has issued a favorable recommendation as it relates to this project. So with that, I'll turn it over to Stefano Basso to review the architectural components of the proposed project for you folks.
And scoot up a couple.
There, keep going.
One more. This one's just showing the proximity to the Franklin Place parking. Yeah, this is good. Thanks.
Oh, that one's good? Okay.
This is perfect. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
So here's the existing building in the blue with the white trim. It's a pretty typical building of downtown Beverly, 2.5 or 3-story building. A little bit of Greek Revival type features on the roof line. A lot of the original architectural detail was covered up at some point with shingle siding. We suspect when we start to peel back some of that siding, we might find corner boards and some other details that have been covered up. We do have a nice covered entryway on the front on the Cabot Street side with a pretty bad infill door. The view on the left is looking sort of coming down Highland Ave. With the parking lot on the right side and the neighbor's driveway on the left side. You can see that the neighboring building is pretty close on the left side. There's a little bit more space to the right. On the right photo, coming from the south, if you're crossing the bridge and heading towards downtown Beverly, the building is set just past Bartlett Ave. There's a couple 3-story buildings right there on the approach that kind of shield it. So coming up and down Cabot Street, it's obstructed a little bit. It doesn't kind of stand out too much. You can see a cross gable about halfway down the original part of the building there. If you hop over to the next slide. Yeah, on the left, a closer look at the parking lot side of the building. You can see some of the same details there. And then towards the back of the property, there's an addition that was put on at some point. It looks like it might be a sort of 50s vintage addition based on the metal awning over one doorway and the kind of smaller windows and low pitch roof line. So part of the idea of our project is to maintain the architectural details that are there, restore some of the details we think would have been there, and then try to clean up the addition that isn't as appealing in the back of the building now. On the site plan, Cabot Street to the left of the screen, we're showing it's reading as like a pale gray, is the office or retail, the commercial space there. It's currently a residential unit on the street, so we were thinking that it'd be a nice way to activate that portion of Cabot Street with a little bit of commercial space. We're maintaining that existing historic doorway right on Cabot that leads to a residential stairwell up. We're adding a new accessible ramp off of Cabot Street. The existing floor is about 2 feet up above sidewalk elevation, so the ramp can help people get up there and use the space. You can see the parking along the bottom of the screen, along the side yard. The portion in red in the middle is a 2-bedroom unit. So yeah, 2-bedroom unit there. And then to the right, you can see a stair tower. That's the sort of rear common entry for the apartments. The 2 units in blue on the right are part of a new addition that's going on in the building. So that's all new footprint over to the right, that stairwell. There's another small ramp just to get up from grade. The grade slopes down a little bit as you go from Cabot Street towards the rear of the site. And then there's a pretty steep drop off the back of the site. Going up to the second floor, these are all one-bedroom units. So there's an existing one-bedroom on the front of the building. There's an existing one-bedroom in the middle, that 50s edition area. And then the same layout for 2 more one-bedrooms in the new footprint. You can see that we have a few bump outs, 4 bump outs that project off the building on the new addition to help break up the facade a little bit, in the same stair tower. And moving up to the 3rd floor, pretty similar layout. There's an existing 2-bedroom in the front in the roof of that existing original building. Here in the middle, the 1-bedroom unit is a new addition on the 3rd floor. So we're taking off that existing roof above the 2nd floor and putting a new 3rd floor on there as well. And the stair tower is feeding the same 2 units in the back again there. Roof plan shows a typical sloped roof on the front, the existing part, where we have the new 3rd floor addition, where sort of mimicking the existing sloped roofs. So we're bringing the same shed dormer line across. We are cleaning up a little, there's a little bit of extra bump outs on the driveway side. So we're taking off a little bit of roof, infilling a little bit of flooring, and trying to clean up that facade so it's just a little bit more streamlined. And then the flat roof on the back of the new addition above the stair and the stack of 1-bedroom units off the back. The flat roof portion will be solar ready. It's got good exposure and has a pretty good footprint. So we'll do what we typically do to try to bank plumbing stacks to get a really efficient solar layout for the roof there. And the basement plan, there's an existing basement with utilities coming in. So the building's not currently sprinklered. We'll sprinkler the entire building and bring in new utilities as required there. The majority of the new footprint will be slab on grade with just the stair tower extending down to the basement level. There's an existing bulkhead with a few steps down off the back. So we're taking that off and then providing good, safe stairway access down to the basement from that main stair tower. Looking at the elevations, this is the restored Cabot Street facade. So this is a little bit more similar to what we think it originally might have been detailed like, with some modifications as well. So we're bringing back some nice corner board trim to help the building pop. We're keeping that existing covered entryway, the roof line, with some nice bracketing, restoring it and replacing the existing door with a more historical looking half glass light panel door with a nice full side light, adding some gooseneck lighting. And then we've introduced this white panel scheme along the front of the building that we think will help to make the commercial space especially pop a little bit. So if you're walking up and down the street or driving, that'll really catch your eye. We're anticipating that a tenant might put up a blade sign, so we're showing that detail. We've replaced the existing window at the 1st floor with a bank of 3 oversized double hung windows. Something like you might see in a more historical downtown area, in lieu of a storefront system that we typically see on a mixed-use building. Thinking that this fits in more with the scale and the style of the building, providing a lot of glass but keeping the historical feel of it. And the tree in the front is a replacement of the existing tree, which is in pretty bad shape. So among the many planting conversations we had with the design review board, they were in favor of replacing that tree with a new tree that'll be here for a long time.
And just to clarify, Stefano, that door doesn't go into the business office space, right? That's just residential?
Yep, residential entry door for the front units. Yeah, we're using a black sash window. We think adds to the historical feel of the building, vintage for turn of the century type building. We're using a different window Muntin bar scheme. So we have a 6/1 scheme that helps the front portion of the building to feel more historical, and then we're moving to a 2/1 scheme in the back. You can see that we've brought the white paneling around the front of the building. So the paneling is on the more prominent two sides that get more windows and the access to the commercial space. The commercial tenant door, similar style to the door on the front of the house here. And you can see the accessible ramp that'll help people get up into the space there. Same lighting. It's a little hard to read on the angle, but we've mimicked the existing sort of roof overhang over the entry door. And we have just a 6-inch version of the same detail over the paneled areas above the windows and above the entry door there. You can see some planting beds off to the back behind the ramp. You can see that we're adding another tree on the front of the site in the buffer zone between the sidewalk and the parking area. We also have a row of privet along the front there that rounds the corner. And a fence as well. You can start to see the addition in the back with the connector piece. I think the next one probably shows it a little clearer. Yep. So this is the new 3-story addition. The idea was to really highlight the existing building with the darker color and the contrasting trim and the roof line. And for the middle portion of the building to kind of serve as a sort of less descript connector piece between the two, and then tie in with a more modern addition off of the back. So we went with a lighter color scheme on the back to help lighten the feel of the building. We have a light gray clapboard for the first and second floor. And then on the third floor, we've introduced a white vertical panel siding. And we brought the same panel siding down on those projecting bay windows on levels 2 and 3. You can see the 2/1 windows that we were using here to make it feel a little differentiated. And the stair connector, that's the primary entry for the residents of the rear and the middle part of the building. That's a little bit of a modern window scheme to help it stand out a little bit. And we're going with a flat, sort of cable-stayed canopy roof over that. We're showing some oversized address numbers. I think it's kind of fun and helps to make it clear that that's another entryway for the building. You can see that we have a trash enclosure in the middle behind the cross gable. One of the comments we received from the design review board, they thought that the cedar fence that we were showing looked out of place for where it was on the property, which we agreed with. So we're gonna, that was one of the conditions from the DRB that we're going to take, and that'll be more of a white panel fence to match better the architecture of the building. So that was another good note from the DRB. And off to the right are the tandem spaces. And you can see the retaining wall, excuse me, the retaining wall that holds up the parking area from the drop-off of the hill.
Good evening, and thank you. So this slide shows our existing conditions plan.
Excuse me, Mr. Griffin,
yes.
we all know you, but just for the record, if you
Yeah,
would,
no,
I would
sorry
appreciate
about
it.
that.
No.
Bob Griffin, Griffin Engineering, Cabot Street in Beverly.
Sir?
Thank you. 11,000 square foot lot, so roughly a quarter acre. We've got about 82 feet of frontage there on Cabot Street. And one of the challenges of the existing site is that the driveway opening is very narrow. It's about 11 feet coming in off of Cabot Street, and that's much less than you would want to see. So we'll be widening that up. I'll show that in a minute. The lot is about 130 feet deep, and in the back of the lot is a garage. I don't think we had any photographs of the garage, but it's not in very good shape, and certainly in need of being torn down and replaced as part of this sort of overall comprehensive improvement program here. The heavy black line that goes left to right near the bottom of the lot is the zoning line, so that's the RMD district below the line, the CC district above the line. Let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So here's our proposed layout. From an engineering point of view, really, we're just, reconstructing or improving the parking lot. So you can see the wider entrance there at Cabot Street. We're also going to replace the concrete sidewalk in that area as well. The sidewalk is particularly wide in this portion of Cabot Street. It's about 12 feet wide. Before we get to that first parking space, we're going to have a little planting bed. So in the top left corner of our site, there's some landscaping. I think some of the renderings that Stefano showed included a tree and some privets in that area. You can see how we're adding handicapped access, which doesn't exist now, into the building through the handicap ramps that were pointed out. And we're going to fix the street tree out front that's been whacked by hundreds of trucks. It's surprising that it's still standing, but we'll put a proper street tree in the sidewalk and make sure it's not leaning out into the roadway. On the neighbor side, sort of to the left as we're looking at the plan, we're going to be adding a vinyl fence just to provide a little bit of screening so they don't have to look at the cars quite so much. And there'll also be the privet in that area as well. The parking lot's going to have granite curbing up at near Cabot Street, but the portion back towards the retaining wall is going to be bituminous concrete curbing, but pretty conventional stuff. Let's see. From a parking point of view, we've got 11 residential units here, and we've got 13 parking spaces, and so that matches our 9 one-bedroom units and our 2 two-bedroom units. So we have 2 parking spaces associated with the 2-bedroom units. 1 bedroom gets 1 parking space. And the 2 spaces sort of be at the bottom of the building as you're looking at the plan. There's 2 sort of back-to-back parking spaces, and so those will be assigned to one of the 2-bedroom units. So they'll sort of valet park themselves, but I think that's okay as long as we assign it in that particular manner. The heavy black line that sort of zigzags at the bottom is the concrete retaining wall. Right now there's about 15 feet of grade change over the site. That wall, with all of the site basically grading away from Cabot Street. So we're not allowing any runoff to go down, towards Cabot Street or into the street or anything like that. But it does drop off a little bit from the sidewalk area, and that retaining wall will hold up the parking area and a portion of the infiltration system. So from a stormwater point of view, we're going to, and if you could advance to the next slide, please, Darlene, thank you. That rectangular box in the middle is our infiltration bed. We've done some soil testing in that area so that we know the water will be adequately received by the ground. But we're basically taking roof runoff from the addition, bringing that into the new infiltration bed. We're also adding some a catch basin at the back of the site, so as the water slopes away from Cabot Street, it'll get picked up into that catch basin and then brought back forward into the infiltration bed, from where it'll go down into the ground. We've provided a stormwater management report, outlining why this design meets the stormwater management standards. And as is typical, we have a reduction in both the rate and volume of water leaving the site after construction is complete as compared to today. I think, let's see, we got the utilities. We're going to reuse, we're going to put in new water and sprinkler system as well for the fire protection, as Stefano pointed out. And with that, I'm going to return it back to him. He'll talk about some landscaping a little bit further and some sustainability issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin.
All right. Jumping over to the landscape plan here.
Yeah,
It's a little hard to read.
I can zoom in a little bit.
Without going through every plant. The street tree, we had originally called it out as a cherry tree, but some feedback was that we should go with more of a columnar tree, so it'll be either a pin oak or a Japanese tree lilac. The tree in the bottom left, oh yeah, that's a lot clearer, is a honey locust in the planting bed that screens the parking. The privet that we talked about wraps from the edge of the driveway and then down along the bottom of the screen where the fencing is. We have some red twig dogwood along the parking spaces in the back. The third tree, just off the screen on the bottom right, is a red maple, a little bit of a bigger tree. A lot of the planting beds along the back where the retaining wall is, and the front planting bed on the neighboring driveway are northern sea oats, kind of wispy grass type, and the planting bed at the entryway is filled with a mix of native perennial flowering plants. We were showing a little bit of lawn, but we're going to be replacing that with native, lower maintenance type grasses that won't require as much water, that won't require mowing. That's an improvement to the project there. We do have the images of all the plant types. They're all native, drought-tolerant type plants. So if you have any questions, we can go through the list of those later on. And then we have just some images referencing what some of the site features look like. So we have like the gooseneck lighting, the bike rack, which is adjacent to the two tandem spaces towards the rear of the site. We have the fencing, which we won't be using the cedar fence anymore, and the wood guardrail at the parking area. Another request was to look at if we could get a different guardrail that functions as the two-in-one sort of car guardrail and pedestrian guardrail. So that's something we'll be looking into. And then pavers for certain areas of at the entryway. We're using the pavers to differentiate, get people sort of out of the driveway going into the building. And then some of the sustainability features, which you might recognize from previous TOD type projects. It's an urban infill project, which is great for development. We're not clearing open space. We can rely on existing infrastructure, the streets, the sidewalk, the utilities. There's neighborhood amenities. The residents will populate local businesses. There's walkability. It's a 5-minute walk from the T station, and there's a bus stop right out front. We'll be doing a better job with the stormwater runoff, as Bob mentioned. We're out of the floodplain here, and we're reducing non-reflective surfaces with some of the additional plantings and the white roof. And, yep, the plantings. Some sustainability features on the building. Stretch code compliant, of course. Energy Star. The insulation requirements are Energy Code just updated in Massachusetts a few months back, so even better than the projects we've been getting the last few years, which, you know, the requirements for solar ready on the roof, low E windows throughout, heat pump, heating and cooling, occupancy sensors, EV charging ready, which is another Massachusetts requirement that's come through, so that's great to see. And recycling and composting collection. All right.
Lastly, as mentioned at the onset, as part of this project, the applicant will be designating one of the 7 new one-bedroom units at 60% of the area median income. This just gives you a sense. The 7 new units will all be 1 bedroom. They're roughly the same size. It'll have all the same finishes and all that. So the intention at this point is not to necessarily assign one unit, but to have it operate as a floating unit, depending, gives more flexibility in the event, particularly that an affordable resident, you know, phases out of affordability. In that instance, it allows for another unit to be designated there, and then would just give a sense as to what the 60% AMI income limits are at the moment for the area, given the size of the household. And with that, that concludes kind of our overview of the project. Any number of us would welcome any questions that the board may have at this moment. Thanks.
Questions for the applicant's team from members of the board? Sarah?
I guess this question for Darlene, perhaps. So remind me, just on this last bit about the inclusionary units. So it's our requirement is 12% of the units at 60% AMI. So they would need to provide 1 1/3 units, right? So they're
It's
running
12% of the
down
new units.
of the new units.
So it's, the calculation is on, but for
It's on
6
the
to 9
new.
units, it's 1 unit.
Right, gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember how we did the rounding, because I don't think we discussed that last time, and I couldn't remember. Okay. Is there any, so it sounds like you want to do floating. Is there any sense whether initially you plan to make the 2-bedroom unit available, or the 1-bedroom unit? Seems like,
The plan is to have one of the 7 new one-bedroom units into
one of
the
the 7
rear.
new one-bedroom, okay.
It'd be-
I didn't
be
hear that
the-
correctly.
The affordable one, yes.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
I'm good.
Okay. Derek?
I just, first, I noticed on the page 2 of the addendum that you filed with the application, it actually says under inclusionary housing proposed at 80% in the document. Have you revised that and given an updated?
Yeah, so I spoke with Ms. Nguyen about this yesterday, I believe. This was submitted prior to the adoption of that zoning amendment, so at the time that this application was submitted, it would have been 80% to comply with the ordinance, and so we supplemented this application with the inclusionary housing to be 60%,
Yep.
to be consistent with the new with the
I just
amendment.
figured I saw
No, of
it, so
course.
I'd flag it. and
Yeah, no,
say-
it's a time of change with in that world right now for sure. So
I noticed in the parking and traffic conditions, one of the conditions they set was for you to have the MBTA agree to move the bus stop. Could you explain a little bit about
I
that?
think
If we could flip back to the, either the layout of the existing conditions, Darlene.
Yeah. Let's see. Oops, that one?
Yeah, we can work with, so, well. Okay. There's a hydrant and there's a bus stop sign sort of in that top left corner. Well, the hydrant is to the left of the bus stop sign. I can,
Oh, is the bus stop here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah, okay.
so that's the bus stop sign, and it's a little close to the proposed driveway. So our suggestion is just to move it to the left about 6 feet. It's, I think this should be an insignificant issue with the MBTA. There's no big sort of area for loading a bus or, standing a bus. A bus doesn't stay there for a long period of time. It's just a pickup, drop-off kind of type of bus stop. And so we'll have to coordinate relocation of that sign with the MBTA, which is always fun to work with them. And so we'll do that as part, and that's what the parking and traffic condition referred to.
Okay, I just, didn't know whether or not you've thought that was going to be a difficult task or.
I suspect it'll be a little bureaucratic, but, we'll get it done.
Okay, good. The other question I had actually comes to you. It's one of the conditions that the DRB has in their letter, and that was maybe not was it a condition or was it a request? And that was about having paved area on the driveway,
Yeah,
and whether or not that would have any impact on your stormwater plan?
yeah. So I think, so if we can scroll down on this page a little bit, Darlene, that little hatched area just below the building isn't a parking space, it's more for storage, and I think we can put bicycles there, for example. But our stormwater calculations had that whole area paved anyway, so I don't think that there's any issue.
Okay, all right, so, and those are the only questions I have.
Ellen, Ms. Flannery?
I do, Madam Chair, one question for you, Mr. Griffin. Snow removal on site?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton of snow removal here, but Mr. Jalbert, has staff that are, working every snowstorm anyways, and so this will just be part of his snow route. And so, if we get a storm that requires, hauling materials off-site, he's got the equipment at hand to do it, and that's what he'll do.
Thank you.
Actually, Madam Chair, I just realized that I forgot to ask another question is there a second egress in the office space, or is it just that one entrance in and out?
Just the one.
Just the one? The code doesn't have two exit?
If we needed to, we could have an egress only through the residence there. The idea was just we didn't want the public coming. Here's, we didn't want the public coming in that front door, that it would be more secure for residents, but that could be used by the employees of the office or retail space.
Is it an emergency egress out into the hallway to get to out that front door?
Yeah, you could do that. Yep.
I'm not making a requirement, I'm just asking. It just seemed odd to me to have just a bottled area.
Yeah, there's access from the commercial space to that front hallway, just for people coming in, the general public. It would be up the accessible ramp.
Okay, I guess I hadn't seen it in the drawings. So, okay, thank you.
Actually, I have a couple questions, if you don't mind. What exists beyond, or what will the area beyond the retaining wall look like?
So that is, it'll be planted with Boston ivy.
Maybe the landscaping plan?
I don't think we got the landscaping plan.
It says it
That's
doesn't.
the only reason I was asking.
Yeah, it's currently sort of an existing overgrown hill type area. So as part of the project, they'll be cleaning that up and doing some more intentional planting back there. They've had some trees that have come down recently too, a pretty big one. So there'll be some pruning of the existing trees to try to get that area more secure as well.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to remember my zoning. Are there setbacks when you border you're in the CC district and it borders the RMD?
Well, we looked into that, and
Yeah, if I may.
Please.
We ran that question by Jim Butler, and his conclusion was consistent with our interpretation, is that where the rear of the property abuts RMD,
Yep.
it's subject to the 20-foot rear setback, but where the side setback is entirely CC to CC, that it's a 0-foot setback, consistent with CC requirements. And so it's tight on that side. The addition will be farther from the property line than the existing structure, but that was discussed and confirmed with the building inspector.
Was there any thought to pushing out the parking area so that it would, not that I'm a fan of extending parking areas, but it just seems to me, my concern is parking spaces 12 and 13 being in tandem, and then you've got, I think, three additional ones which are for compact cars, and frankly, I don't know anybody driving compact cars anymore.
So is your question related to that kind of the 9, 10, 11 parking spaces?
Well, I
then?
guess I was just wondering if any thought had been given to maybe a different configuration for that parking so that you're using up more of the available lot area.
Sure. I think a lot of it was the result, and Bob or Stefano can correct me if I'm wrong, was the result of the grade in the rear of the property. In this portion of Cabot Street where it drops down into kind of like the May Street, Bartlett Street area, there is a pretty significant drop off. So I would suspect that had something to do with the decision making. I'm not sure whether.
You're right, I think, but this is also a fairly efficient parking layout. So, we've got, the building addition is going to go next to the existing building, and so that sort of area has to be the building. And then, by putting a continuous aisle from the street all the way to the back and having your parking spaces 90 degrees to that, I think is what you would normally expect.
And should we, do you think that the tandem parking presents any type of issue?
No, I think it actually works fine, particularly where it's going to be assigned to one dwelling unit. I think if it wasn't going to be assigned, then there might be some coordination issues, but with it assigned to a particular two-bedroom unit, it makes a lot of sense.
And will the parking spaces be assigned to the tenants?
I think that's the intention, yes.
Okay.
that was actually a requirement from the Parking Traffic Commission.
The parking traffic study.
I must have overlooked it, I'm sorry. I'm wondering if I could ask about just the overall design of the addition. I guess, to be honest with you, I find myself a little bit disappointed, and I know nothing about design, I'll be readily. I love the front part of it. I love that it maintains the historical aspect of that neighborhood. But then we go to the back, and it's rectangular, and it's, sort of Rantoul Street Redux, and it loses, to me, it loses the historical that you capture in the front. And I'm just wondering if there was any thought to changing the roof lines and things like that to capture, I think, more of what you had done on the front.
Yeah, we did study some sloped roof schemes in the back. I think they were a little difficult to work out. Part of it's the sort of squarish shape of the building, and also the fact that it's not a rectangular footprint. There's some angles on it. That made it a little tricky. We looked at doing a mansard roof scheme. We looked at the gable roof with the shed dormers, tried hip roof, and they weren't as successful because of the angles and the depth of the building. We also have the 35-foot height. Maybe if we had more height to play with the roof ridge, but trying to keep the ridge down with the width of the building. It felt like anything we could do to make it work got really fussy, and we thought that the existing building, where it's really on the street, it has this existing historic presence, would shine a little bit more and it would pop with the contrast. We did try to make it work, and when it wouldn't, sort of didn't want to blend as much, that's when we took this approach of the sort of transition of the middle additions to the rear portion of the building. Also, if you start to extend the ridge and the dormers along the same line for too long, I find it's not as successful. Historically, they wouldn't have done that. They break up the building for a longer building as you move back. It's not the big house, little house, back house, barn scheme, but it's sort of a variation on that, where you have the primary house, a secondary piece, and then a larger piece on the back, like you might have.
I'll be honest, I was disappointed when you said that you had opted for a more modern look. It's such a historical neighborhood. I'll leave it at that. Like I said, I know nothing about design, it's just personal aesthetics, so. Ellen, did you want to add anything?
No, I'm comfortable.
Oh,
Ellen,
okay.
thank you.
Other questions? Trying to look at my notes. Do you anticipate any, do you have any concern or any issues with, you know what, I'll skip that question. Other questions from members of the board? Yes.
In terms of aesthetics, I was actually, I understand, I mean, you're trying to get the most square footage you can in that third level. And so playing with the roofs and things like that, maybe makes it harder. But the choice of making it pop out like that, I guess I understand it as you were describing it, but at the same time, I'm wondering if it would blend a little bit better. Do we need it to pop as a modern-looking structure as you're walking by or driving by, or if we did something with the color, if it was more continuous with what's existing? Or, you know, we could also have our design review board person weigh in.
They had no question, they had no problem, Derek, truly, with the colors. They like the colors, they like the style, the design, and as a matter of fact, we looked at the contrast in a very complimentary way. There was really very little, if any, discussion relative to the design.
Yeah, the front part of the building, the color is not too dissimilar from the color that's there now. Kind of like the darker siding color on a building of that scale. It's that sort of not a navy blue, it's a little bit more of a pale, grayed out, low saturation navy. But we thought that with the contrasting trim and especially the paneling on the commercial space, that would really pop more. And the site's pretty deep, so unless you're standing across the street at the car dealership or kind of stopping in the driveway and looking back, It's really largely obscured from the streetscape, which is part of the reason why we felt comfortable making a move like that. I think if the building were longer, if that were more visible on a corner street, say, that would have been a bolder, louder move that I don't think we would have made. But with the site receding back away from Cabot Street, felt like it was pretty safe. I think the lighter color, actually, the light gray and the white, will help it to kind of fade away compared to the white paneling on the front of the building, which we think with the contrast is really going to pop and stand out.
See that, I mean, what we're not seeing are the buildings that are actually hemming it in. You know, I mean, they're close. There's virtually no separation, you know, between the, what is it, 0.8 feet or something like that on the, what would be the left side or the north side.
Yeah.
And the other side, there's a building that's right there, so.
Yeah, the existing photos from the south side show the 3-story buildings with no setback.
And the tandem parking, when I lived on Pickett Street years ago, my driveway was tandem, and it was the big pain in the neck, but we survived. And it meant you weren't blocking in a neighbor, and, you know, that was the best thing, so.
Yeah, my wife and I have tandem parking, and it means that whoever leaves first gets the car that's out. So it kind of self-regulates.
You know, I can't visualize the property, so can you, and I appreciate what you just said about the, but what is to, I guess, to the, if I'm looking at it from the schematics, what's to the left of the property?
This one, or?
Right here.
So to the north, we have this, it's like black with a stone base, I think, right on the street, and it's right on the driveway.
Okay, oh, so you really can't see anything?
No.
Okay.
And then these two on the right, coming from the south, have a 0 setback on every side, pretty much. May Street is right around the corner from the brick building there. So on the approach, as you kind of round the curve through Bartlett with the flashing pedestrian light, you can see the front of the building and you see this gable, but you really don't see even the existing addition off the back of the property.
Personally, I like the design of the front.
I love the front.
Of the, you know, very much, everything from the lamps to the window treatment to, and, you know, keeping the existing doorway, things like that. It's very nice. I like the infill nature of the project. I like the height of the project. I know that, you know, you were up against what the requirements are.
Did 32
But
instead of 35.
At the same, yeah, at the same time, you know, it's a lot more enjoyable to go through a project like this, so thank you.
Anything else before we open it up to the public? Okay. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to be heard on this? George, I just want to make sure that I'm not ignoring you. If there's anything that you wish to offer, if you wish to be heard, just chime in, okay? Okay.
I appreciate that, Madam Chair. I'm good. There's a little bit of a lag, so I'm listening intently.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. I just didn't want you to think that we were ignoring you or I was ignoring you. Okay, if there's no more questions, Ellen, you've got that.
I do, because, has the applicant heard from any of the neighbors in any, to the positive or negative, Mr. Walsh?
So, yes, the applicant reached out to the neighborhood. He actually yesterday met with the owner of 105 Cabot, which was the property that Madam Chair was just asking about. I'll let you say you spent 2 hours with him having coffee at Atomic, and so they talked through the design. And as far as I understand it, he was comfortable with everything by the end. And then there was no objection from any other neighbors that we've heard of.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Are we waiting for anything from any of our boards or departments?
No, we have all of the boards have reviewed that. I provided a draft letter from the Parking and Traffic Commission. It just hasn't been signed by Mr. Benevento yet, but it's largely, it's complete. It reflects the conditions that the Parking and Traffic Commission imposed on their recommendation or put on their recommendation. Attorney Walsh, agreed with that as his interpretation of the meeting as well. And I did update the comment from the fire department because
Okay.
he had copied in the wrong
Yeah.
comment.
Can you just read that for the
Yeah,
record?
noting that the building proposal indicates compliance with current code requirements for fire detection and suppression. And then I guess just for the record too, the Parking and Traffic Commission recommended approval with 4 conditions, some of that which have been mentioned, but that the applicant obtain approval and verification from the MBTA to relocate the bus stop, that the residential parking spaces on site shall be designated for each unit, and in addition, the 2 piggyback parking spaces shall be allocated to the 2-bedroom unit pursuant to the Beverly zoning ordinance, or 2A, 2-bedroom unit. That the property owner is responsible for snow removal from the sidewalk in front of the property, which is already a city ordinance, and that the new street tree on Cabot Street, replacing the existing tree, will not impede pedestrian access or parking. So those are the 4.
Okay, and just to verify that the applicant has no concerns with any of those conditions, is happy to comply with them?
Yes.
Or willing to comply, I guess I should say.
That's correct. That's all
Okay.
consistent with our conversations with parking and traffic, so thank you.
Okay. Unless you all tell me otherwise, I don't see any reason to keep this public hearing open. All right, then I would welcome a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Sinclair. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Beckwith. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley,
Yes.
Ellen Flannery,
Yes.
George Gomes. George Gomes?
Yes, I apologize.
That's okay. That's a long delay.
Yeah,
That was my voice. Rodney Sinclair?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. Okay, so this public hearing is closed. I think we should just move on this matter now. And I would welcome either a motion or separate motions if you like.
So,
Ms. Flannery?
Do you want separate?
Whatever you want. You know what, I like to do them separately. Let's just do them separately.
Madam Chair, I move to approve a site plan, okay, let me get my notes. Site plan review number 161-23 at 103 Cabot Street. The applicant is Cabot Park LLC with the following conditions. The design review board letter dated 2/8/23. Would you like me to read each of the conditions?
Sure.
Condition number 1, the existing elm to be removed. Please remove tree trunk and root plate to a depth suitable to allow for new tree root ball. Based on the proposed this depth is to be a minimum of 28 inches. We recommend additional depth to be 36 inches to allow for new amended topsoil. Please remove all wood chips. Number 2, due to the size of this tree and machinery required, we recommend removal of the tree roots beyond the existing opening in the concrete. Please consider reinstating the tree opening at 4 feet by 6 feet. Condition number 3, the proposed snow goose cherry tree is not a columnar type of tree, and it is not very tolerant of urban conditions, including de-icing salts. Consider the following alternatives with the city arborist's approval: a green pillar pin oak or Japanese tree lilac. Condition number 4, the trash enclosure. To screen trash enclosure and make it feel part of the architecture, please consider painting the fence to match the evening blue color of existing building with the white 6x6 columns at corners. Condition number 5, the northern sea oats. Consider replacing the segment of sea oats at end of the drive aisle on top of the wall, number 10, with Shenandoah switchgrass, a salt-tolerant ornamental grass. Condition number 6, red twig dogwood, not salt tolerant. Suggest show-off forsythia, shamrock inkberry, or compacta summersweet. And condition number 7, crushed stone at the rear addition. Consider hard pavement as alternative for step-out surface from cars and reduce maintenance. In addition, the conditions from the Parking and Traffic Commission, their letter dated March 7, 2023. Number 1, that the applicant shall obtain approval and verification from the MBTA to relocate the bus stop as shown on the reference plan. Number 2, that the residential parking spaces on site shall be designated for each unit. In addition, that the 2 piggyback parking spaces shall be allocated to the 2-bedroom unit pursuant to the Beverly zoning ordinance. Number 3, that the property owner is responsible for snow removal from the sidewalk in front of property pursuant to the rules of the City of Beverly. And condition number 4, that the new street tree on Cabot Street to replace an existing tree to be removed shall not impede pedestrian access to or parking. In addition, conditions regarding the letter from the Engineering Department dated February 9th, 2023. Number 1, the storm management O&M shall be submitted for review. This plan shall outline ownership and responsible party for annual long-term maintenance and reporting requirements. Number 2, this project is subject to needing a construction oversight engineer for full utility installations. Number 3, the water demand fees are due prior to building permits. And number 4, the applicant is reminded that the stormwater O&M is due annually to the engineering department by December 31 of every calendar year. And commencement of work acknowledges that noncompliance with this requirement is subject to violations and applicable fees and fines. This reporting requirement is also valid for construction-related activities. I believe that are there additional conditions?
I don't think so, but I wanted to know your conditions for the DRB
Yes.
were basically framed as being either suggestions or asking for their consideration of, and I presume that you wanted to make them not conditions, something for the applicant to consider, but something that should be mandated.
Yeah, they were noted here as conditions, Madam Chair, that's how I read.
Right, but your
want
conditions,
them-
for example, one of them read, please consider XYZ. I don't think you intend for that condition to be
Considered, I want it to be.
consider it. You
yes.
want it to be
Yes,
mandatory.
thank you.
So can we change, would you amend your motion such that all of the DRB conditions that you read are not to consider, but are instead mandatory?
Yes,
Okay.
Madam Chair,
And
thank
Mr.
you.
Walsh, are you?
Thank you.
Is your applicant happy with those?
Yeah, no objection.
Willing to
Yeah,
comply?
sure. Thank you.
Okay, did you have something?
The Board of Health hasn't weighed in yet. I'm wondering whether or not it would make sense to add the standard conditions from the Board of Health.
I think that's
Yes.
a good idea. So,
I mean, this is, to me, it's important. It's downtown, pest control is part of it, that's all that sort of stuff.
can you amend your
amend that to-
motion to include the standard
standard conditions.
conditions issued by the Board of the Health, Board of Health? Okay, anything else? So I have a motion by Ms. Flannery, is there a second? Seconded by Beckwith. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley,
Yes.
Ellen Flannery,
Yes,
George Gomes,
Yes.
Rodney Sinclair,
Yes.
Derek Beckwith,
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson. Yes, motion passes. And then it's the inclusionary housing application. I think it's just approval of it.
I move to approve the inclusionary housing application number 25-23 at 103 Cabot Street, the applicant Cabot Park LLC, as presented.
Could you also perhaps just describe that as being one unit at 60%
Yes.
of, because I just want to make sure we got the 60% versus the 80% that's in the application.
Yes, and the unit will be a one-bedroom unit at 60% AMI.
Yes. Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Beckwith. So I have a motion by Flannery, a second by Beckwith. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Rodney Sinclair?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson? Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, that, I believe, is the end of our motion, public hearings, right?
Correct.
Okay, could, I have a motion to, return to our meeting, please?
So moved?
Come out of public hearing, return to our meeting. I've got a motion by Flannery, seconded by Beckwith. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Rodney Sinclair?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. Thank you. Okay, our next agenda item is number 6. It is a modification for special permit application number 172-19, site plan review application number 140-19, and inclusionary housing application number 117-19 for the property located at 134 through 142 through 146 Rantoul Street and 1-9 Park Street. I believe this is the property we know as Depot Square, and the applicant is Depot Square Phase 2 LLC.
I have it up here, too.
Chris Copeland for Depot Square Phase 2. Minor modification. We went to the Design Review Board, and we have made several changes. A lot of them are minor in nature. A lot of them have been captured in the building permit when we originally received a building permit. But during the course of construction, a few things have changed. I want to call attention to 5 things that we reviewed with the DRB. Feedback from the retailers we've talked to so far on Rantoul Street, the corner of Rantoul and Pleasant Street. On the image here, it's the one on the left, the retail space there. Originally, at the top, we had some awnings. And from retailers we've talked to, they would prefer to have the option to do those awnings on their own if they want them. They like the look of the building without them. We do too. So for the sign package, when a retailer is at the table here, they'll go through the whole process to get that approved. We would like to get our certificate of occupancy without them, and that's what this graphic shows on the bottom as a modification to the original approval.
So that would be the removal, the modification would be the removal of
Yes.
retail awnings?
Yes.
Okay.
And if a retailer wants them, they'll come back and do them how they want and their own colors and things like that. The other thing is we originally got the exterior lights were not approved by spec. We had some lights on the exterior of the building, if you recall, that fired up and down. And the recommendation was to shoot them straight down, not up into the sky. So the spec is included in this package now for that light. Any signage on this application right here on the Casa de Luca building, for example, was approved by ZBA and DRB through an alternate track that is already completed that included some leasing banners and things. But we're just showing that Casa de Luca sign here just to be clear that that sign will be there on the east side of the Casa building and the north. Part of this shows on the courtyard, I guess. Darlene, if you can go to the courtyard image where there's right there, just just west of the Casa building, right in that little alcove there, there's a little call out there for our historic preservation area, which is still in the works. I just wanted this group to know that we're working with Julie Arison Bishop, a Beverly company, a company called Museum-tastic, to figure out how to do all the public art and all the representation of the historic aspects of the site tastefully and with an accompanied website with QR codes and all kinds of things. So there's a tie-in to the historic story of this block through that public courtyard edge, the front edge of that courtyard as well. So we're working on that. We don't have specifics at the moment, but that's coming. The last thing to call to your attention is the courtyard. This is where most of the work has changed. So the public edge on the far right of the screen there. On the left side is what was approved originally, the colored rendering there. But through Steve Dodge's family, they have this arched radius granite, antique granite that they'd like to use and incorporate into the project in his honor and create benches in the courtyard. That's what those kind of squiggly lines are on the right there. So we originally had 6 park benches, and we want to do those 4 radiused granite benches like that. They're up on granite blocks, so they'll be tastefully done, level, flat, they won't move. And we think it's a better use of that space and creates a little more seating and a little more interest and durability, and the reuse of those materials, we think is pretty interesting. And there's 3 bistro tables still on the edge. The planters that we show, I think there's 1 less planter. Same planting material. One thing that we have added that wasn't clear is the west edge of CASA, which is kind of where your pointer is, the very west edge between the handicap ramp and the CASA building. We found a nice spot for a planting bed along the whole edge of CASA, so we're going to make that a planting bed. We'd like to make that a planting bed with the same plantings similar that go across the front of CASA on the north side towards the park. So that whole edge will feel softened on the low side, which we think is looking pretty good. The other thing I'll call out is around the transformer. We wanted to get some grasses and some plantings around the transformer. National Grid said no, so we can't fit them and they won't work. And so on this graphic for the approval is just some crushed stone. So that's all we can do. And that's it, other than, of course, the noted windows and doors and sliders, but nothing really heavy or dramatic has changed. So that's it, and we hope you approve it.
Questions?
So the first, when you were talking about the awnings, and it took me a little bit of time, both times I have looked at these to remember and recall. I tried to find my original drawings. I wasn't successful in that, but was the design presented with the awnings to us?
It was, yeah, and
right?
mainly in the 3D rendering. Actually.
And because
They
I
were
remember
blue.
something about the awnings helping to break up the facade and you know, that sort of thing. And I understand, you know, retailers coming in or looking at the space and saying, we want to make it our own and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Are there proactive discussions with them, or will there be about, you know, being able to have awnings or something that's going to break up this back? This is the highest, tallest part of the building, in terms of the design.
There are discussions, yes. We've talked to one retailer who would want to put them, and we're meeting with them tomorrow. So we hope they go back on, yeah. We just won't put them on in time for C of O.
But you'd like the flexibility,
Yeah.
obviously, if, and, you know, I guess I understand that.
Well, we're not so much
But this is
seeking-
also, this is in an area right now where, I mean, how far back can you get in this to see the scope of this the side of the building? I mean, this is, what's the road that runs here? The
That's Pleasant and Rantoul.
Pleasant,
Yeah.
yeah. So how far back can you get
From
the building to look up at it?
you can see it from a number of angles, but I guess if you were at the courtyard of Flats 131 across the street, you can definitely look up and see the upper stories, but they're stepped back in a different color. So most of what you feel when you're on the street walking is the 45-foot, you know, the four
Yeah.
stories.
So that,
Yeah.
it would be nice to have the awning, but I understand.
Okay.
And is it only on this side that we're talking about, or is it, that's it, okay.
You all set?
Yeah.
Other questions? Anyone else?
Rodney does
Madam
know.
Chair, just wondering, we got a letter from the Design Review Committee. Just want to hear, Ms. Flannery, anything come out of that meeting? I know they recommended approval, but anything pop out from the discussion?
The replacement with the granite slabs for the seating, Rodney, they like preferred that to the benches. That was very marked in the conversation. And the understanding of what was requested to change the transformer, they remarked about, because there was greenery, but they couldn't have it. Elements like that. But we looked at the entire presentation and approved it as presented, given the nature of what they were speaking to.
Thank you.
The reason for the awnings, the reason why not the awnings. They're very substantial and understood.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd have a question. The letter's silent on whether it was, usually it says unanimous or something like that. Was it a unanimous?
And it was, yes.
It was unanimous?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I can speak to that, Derek, thank you.
That's good to know.
Thank you.
Anything else? Board members? All right, then I would welcome a motion on this then.
Is this
It's
D
a-
minor?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't, sorry,
Yeah.
apologies for no staff
sorry.
report, but yes, this would be like one vote to deem the changes minor or not,
Right.
and then one vote
sorry,
on the
I-
action.
I wasn't clear, but
No, I usually have a staff report.
Looking for the names.
And I would just note, if you're referencing in the vote, I know it says inclusionary housing application,
No.
there's no need to include that.
Madam Chair?
yes.
Move that the planning board deem the modification proposed for special permit application number 172-19, site plan review application number 140-19 at 134, 142, 146 Rantoul Street and 1-9 Park Street by Depot Square Phase 2 LLC be deemed minor in nature.
I have a motion by Mr. Beckwith. Is there a second, please?
Seconded.
Seconded by Mr. Sinclair. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Rodney Sinclair?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. Want to take the next one, Derek?
Yes, move that the planning board approve the minor modification request for special permit application number 172-19, site plan review application number 140-19 at 134, 142, 146 Rantoul Street and 1-9 Park Street by Depot Square Phase 2 LLC.
I have a motion by Mr. Beckwith. Is there a second, please?
Second, Madam Chair.
Seconded by Mr. Sinclair. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Rodney Sinclair?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes.
Thank
There
you.
you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies, gentlemen, we are up to agenda item number 7, which is the preliminary subdivision plan review for the property at 100 Rantoul Street, Barnett Beverly LLC. That was filed on February 8th, 2023.
Does anybody need a copy of a staff report for this?
I do.
I do.
Oops. Look at that, there's the other thing I would need.
Actually, I think you might have left one.
I know, I thought I had a bunch of them printed, I realized
have
I just have one. I have another one, though. And I just want to read into the record the letter from the MBTA, but you can feel free to start if you want to. Sure.
Good evening again.
evening again.
Ann Reynolds on behalf of the applicant Beverly Barnett. LLC. By way of just brief summary, the applicant has submitted a preliminary subdivision plan for the purposes of freezing the zoning with respect to 100 to 114 Rantoul Street, which you know is the location of the existing homes building and the depot parking garage. The proposal is similar to a number of applications that this board has considered at recent hearings this year. It's a simple two-lot subdivision with the lots deriving frontage on the proposed subdivision road and intended to comply with the city's subdivision control rules and regulations without need for waiver. As you'll see noted on the plan, it presumes that the existing buildings, the garage and the homes building, would be demolished. However, there is no intent to demolish the existing buildings or construct the subdivision road. The intent is merely to freeze zoning with respect to the land shown on the plan.
Attorney Reynolds, could I ask you to just keep your voice up to make sure that everybody, especially our reporter/stenographer, can hear you?
Sure.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So I'm happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Questions from anyone?
I just wanted to, if you
Good.
don't mind, before we go to
Not at all.
questions, just wanted to read into, we did get a letter today from the MBTA. As you know, the MBTA is I just handed it out to you, the landowner of the parcel, but there's a long-term lease with the project property owner, so, do you want me to read it?
Sure.
Okay. So it says, the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority is the owner of the land and a commuter parking garage and airspace above the MBTA garage at 100 Rantoul Street. MBTA also owns the land at 110-114 Rantoul Street. MBTA has ground and air leased to Barnett Beverly LLC, the applicant, certain rights in 110 to 114 Rantoul Street and in the airspace above the MBTA garage. It is the MBTA's understanding that agenda item 7A of the agenda for the planning board meeting on March 7th is the proposed subdivision by applicant of certain land and air rights at this location into separate parcels. Please note that the applicant, not the MBTA, made this filing and that the MBTA has not reviewed the materials submitted by the applicant as the application for consideration under item 7A. MBTA reserves all rights as the land and airspace owner as well as owner of the garage and adjacent land to comment on the submitted application and to review and approve or disapprove any further plans the applicant proposes to submit to the planning board for applicant's proposed housing development. Very truly yours, Richard Henderson, MBTA Chief Real Estate Officer. I passed a copy of that. Did you get one?
I was looking at.
So, Ms. Reynolds, I understand that this is a placeholder. But as our planning director is reading that letter, and maybe Darlene, it's better answered by you, does the applicant have the authority to even offer this type of plan where it has ground and air rights, but it doesn't have ownership? Does the ground lease give them the ability to submit this type of a plan?
I don't have it in front of me, but we are working. The reason for the letter was they're in the process of reviewing. It takes time. This obviously was time sensitive in light of the zoning amendments in the beginning or mid-February. And so we've been in constant contact with the MBTA throughout since December or whenever we've initially filed the special permit application. But we are working through this, and they want to reserve their rights, as I understand it, to further have comments as they go through their process on the definitive subdivision plan before that's submitted. And that is my understanding from them of the goal of submitting that letter.
Okay, my concern is the last paragraph. Please note that the applicant, not the MBTA, made this filing and that the MBTA has not reviewed the materials submitted by the applicant as the application for consideration under item 7A. MBTA reserves all rights as the land and airspace owner, as well as owner of the garage and adjacent land, to comment on the submitted application and to review and approve or disapprove any further plans the applicant proposes to submit to the Beverly Planning Board for applicant's proposed housing development. So I go back to my original question. does your client even have the legal authority to file this? I understand it's a placeholder. But can you hold a place for something that you have ground rights to, but not ownership?
We've got a leasehold ownership and
Right.
and subject to, the lease allows the Barnett Beverly to develop what's currently the Holmes building, and then also she's got the rights to the air rights over the garage. Like I said, we've been working with the MBTA on this because it was had to be done quickly, and their process is slower because they're the entity that they are. Like I said, I did not see the letter before it was submitted, but I had multiple conversations with Teresa Patton today at the MBTA regarding the application and their desire to ensure that they have the ability to review and comment further on. And I think letting this board know that they are in process and may have additional comments on this preliminary plan, so that when the definitive plan would not be filed without their sign off on the plan itself. But it's just still in process at the moment.
So, I'm sorry, can you answer for me, does the subdivision plan? That is where the garage is now, correct?
Correct, and the Holmes Beverly building, yes.
But that extends beyond the Holmes building. So does Ms. Barnett have, she has ground lease rights to the, and tell me if I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, Darlene, okay? Because I can go in the weeds a bit. I guess,
understand, I think.
so the front part of that site plan, the rectangular part, that's where the Barnett building is now, correct?
Correct, that fronts on Rantoul Street,
Right.
yes.
But that subdivision, the cul-de-sac, so to speak, looks like, extends into the garage. She doesn't have any rights over that. Her rights are only for aren't her rights, she has air rights, but she doesn't have access to that land. So how can she propose a subdivision of it?
To be honest with you, I don't have the lease with me. I can, to be able to refer that to you, I can get that information to you, but I don't have it to give you that specific.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. Without ownership, you know.
Or even lease rights over it. She certainly has lease rights to the part that she's developed, the rectangular part in front. But she's looking to subdivide, I think, into that part that goes beyond, into the garage where the round shape of the cul-de-sac is. And she doesn't have ownership rights, and she doesn't have, or the applicant doesn't have ground rights. So it's not, maybe she can, but it's not clear to me that she has the legal authority to issue this subdivision plan.
So, Madam Chair, just so I'm clear, the bottom rectangle, she has rights to. The upper, larger rectangle is the MBTA
Yeah.
that is in question. Is that what you're asking?
I think that's yeah, that's how I,
And so then the question is, with a leasehold, do you have the right to submit an application? Is that your question?
no, I think she's, she has a ground lease,
Yep,
right, which allows her to build her building, correct?
correct, yeah.
Behind the building is the garage, right?
Yep.
I don't think she has any leasehold rights other than the specific parking spaces.
Okay.
but I don't think she has any ground lease rights in the garage itself. She has air rights that extend,
Oh, you mean below, on the garage below?
yeah. So it's not, I could be way wrong on this, and if I am, I'll be the first to admit it. But I just wonder if she even has the legal authority to,
Because the building has to go into the ground, which is part of what she doesn't have.
well, you can't subdivide, I don't think you can subdivide land you don't own or land that you don't have
lease
leasehold interest in.
ownership.
So I think maybe I would like to us, is it possible to send this out to our solicitor? And maybe, Ms. Reynolds, get your opinion on it. Maybe we continue this to our next meeting.
Okay.
I want to make sure, are people here on this? Okay. Generally, what has been happening in the city is that people file plans like this, okay? With no intention that the plan is ever going to come to fruition. It's a placeholder. And we've, had 4 or 5 of these? 5 or 6 of these?
This is the sixth.
What it does is, it freezes the zoning for the next, I think it's 8 years. So even though, let's assume that she does have the right to do this, okay, for the sake of argument. She has no intention of knocking down the garage. She has no intention of subdividing this property in that way. It's a placeholder. It serves no other purpose other than to freeze the zoning. So I don't want anybody who's either here in this room or watching on BevCam freaking out thinking she's going to knock down the garage and do, all sorts of crazy things. She's not. The applicant isn't. It's just to freeze the zoning. But I'm not sure the applicant even has the legal authority to do so. Yes.
And Madam Chair, the letter certainly doesn't make me feel like that change that opinion at all. In the line, the MBTA reserves all rights as the land and airspace owner, as well as owner of the garage and adjacent land, to comment on the submitted application and to review and approve or disapprove any further plans the applicant proposes to submit to the plan. So it's like, they're saying, we're the owner, we can disapprove or anything. So how we could approve something that hasn't been given approval by the owner to file is a big question I have. So I think that the city solicitor weighing in would be important for me.
I agree.
Yeah, and I'm happy to, like I said, we've been working with the MBTA. That the intent, from what I understood, was solely to give them time to make sure that it was clear to the board that they may have additional thoughts prior to filing the definitive plan. So I'm happy to go back and speak with them or confirm on the lease. The lease is just not. I did not draft the lease or was not involved in that. So. I don't have it with me, but I will. Sure. I can go back and happy to come back and discuss that issue.
And I think the MBTA's opinion on this is one aspect of it. From my perspective, it's also the question of where she doesn't have any leasehold rights in the garage itself, and she doesn't have any ownership rights in the garage itself. Does she have the right to file a subdivision plan that includes the garage? So, my suggestion would be, do we think we can get answers to these questions by March 29th? Today is the,
She should be, I mean, I don't.
March
Okay.
29th.
So can we continue this matter to March 29th?
Sure.
Okay, can I have a motion, please, that we continue this, it's not a public hearing, it's just an agenda item.
Can you include in the motion just a formal request to get the opinion of the city solicitor?
Yes,
She
we
prefers
can.
the vote on that.
Whoever is making the motion?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I move that we do 2 things with this item. First, that we request an opinion from the city solicitor on whether this application can legally be determined,
Can I offer?
yeah.
If the applicant has the legal authority to even offer this type of a subdivision plan where it extends into the garage and the applicant doesn't have leasehold interest or ownership interest in that property.
Yes, what she said. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
And also that we continue this matter to our next meeting on Wednesday, March 29th, 2023.
Second by Ms. Flannery. Is there any discussion on this? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Where is my list? I'm sorry, I've lost my little cheat sheet with all you people, your names. Here it is. Sarah Bartley,
Yes.
Ellen Flannery.
Yes.
George Gomes,
Yes.
Rodney Sinclair,
Yes.
Derek Beckwith,
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson. Yes. Thank you. Thanks for understanding. Appreciate it. Okay, our next agenda item is to set public hearings for site plan review number, what's that?
There's a revised agenda.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
It's here. Oh, you go.
Have it? Oh, I missed this one. I'm so sorry. Why did I get that old one? Okay, our next agenda item is number 8, request for construction completion extension to June 6th, 2024 for the definitive subdivision plan for the Livingstone Avenue improvements. The applicant is 7 Porter Terrace LLC. Thank you, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Do people need the materials, or did we get them in the drive? I have them.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I think when we discussed this last in December.
I'm sorry, Mr. Griffin, your name and address again, sorry.
Yes, Bob Griffin, Griffin Engineering, Cabot Street in Beverly.
We have a new reporter, that's why. Go ahead, sorry.
Nice to see you. The city engineer had expressed some concern about extending the bond, and the board extended the bond for 3 months to allow some time to have some additional discussions. The city hired an outside engineer to prepare an evaluation of the work. I think it's fair to say that the work is satisfactory. There have been some deficiencies in erosion control at the site which have been corrected, and the applicant has promised and it seems to be working cooperatively with the city engineer to make sure that in the future the city has plenty of opportunity to make inspections of the work as it occurs. To update you just generally, the 2 building lots have recently been sold, and I think there are some building permits pending to put residential houses on those 2 lots. So we expect that construction work to occur this year. That would allow the finishing of the road work either late this year or early next year. The applicant has posted a bond that is effective to next June, and so I think there's plenty of time for all of this to happen and in the ordinary sequence.
Okay.
If you want to have the letter from Mr., you have one, but in case Rodney doesn't, there's a letter from the city engineer and email from Mr. Griffin. Can you read the letter from the engineer?
You can, or if you want, you can summarize Mr. Barber's thoughts.
Sure. I'll just give it, we had a letter from Eric Barber, city engineer, dated March 6th, indicating that the developer and the engineering team have been working proactively since the last meeting, or mid-January, to kind of resolve the issues and the questions about the site. Erosion control methods have been updated to comply with the city's erosion control ordinance and stormwater management. The road right-of-way has been cleaned up, and the silt sack catch basins have been cleaned up, as was requested. They blocked off the roadway from general traffic with signs and cones to reduce usage of the roadway over the winter and control the construction site. The developer's site contractor was the only one who was allowed to remove snow so as to protect the features that we were concerned about in the site layout, and specifically the raised castings. And then he wanted to add a clarification that were not included in the memo, just that the engineering department wanted to note that, I think they had originally said that the engineering department did not observe any of the utility installation. He wanted to clarify that they did note that portions of the utilities were inspected by city staff at the time of installation. And then they also asked the developer to have their utility contractor dig inspection pits so that they could then also inspect the installation post-construction or post-installation. And that they have demonstrated that the utilities were installed in accordance with city standards. And that they have all records available that they've asked for to date. So it's kind of in summary, and in talking with Mr. Barber, that they're satisfied with the work that the developer has done and with extending the construction completion date accordingly.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Griffin? Okay, hearing none, I'd welcome a motion on this, please.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I move that the planning board approve the requests for construction completion extension to June 6, 2024 for definitive subdivision plan Livingstone Avenue Improvements -7 Porter Terrace LLC.
Is there a second, please? Seconded by Ms. Flannery. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Rodney Sinclair?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes.
Great, thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. I got it. I found my copy. Okay, that was number 8. Our next agenda item is number 9, which is a request for an extension of letter of credit for OSRD site plan number 10-17 Hickory Hill Way, which is formerly known as 2030 and 40 Webster Avenue. This is a request for an extension from February 7th, 2023 to December 7th, 2023, and the applicant is Hickory Hill LLC.
If you recall, there's no one here representing this, but if you recall back in December, we were seeking a extension of this bond, this letter of credit, and the bank was going through some sort of transition. They could only extend it to February 7th, and we were instructed we would get a subsequent letter. We didn't get it immediately, but when I remembered, I asked them for it, so we just got it this week. And so this request now is to extend the letter of credit to December 7th, 2023, and all the other terms and conditions of the letter of credit remain in effect.
Questions? Okay, hearing none, I'd welcome a motion on this, please.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I move that we approve the request for extension of letter of credit for OSRD site plan number 10-17 Hickory Hill Way from February 7th, 2023 to December 7th, 2023.
Is there a second, please? Seconded by Ms. Flannery. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Rodney Sinclair?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson? Yes. Great. Agenda item number 10, we have to set some public hearings. First public hearing, for which we need a date, would be site plan review of, plan review number 162-23 for the property located at 451 Essex Street, and the applicant is Fazio Enterprises Incorporated. Is there any reason not to set this for March 29th?
No, I mean, we'll have 128 Boulder Lane on the 29th.
Yep.
And then, you know, a little discussion on the preliminary plan, potentially, but I don't think so. I think this is fine to take both of these on the next meeting.
Okay. I'd welcome a motion then, please.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I move that the planning board hold a public hearing on site plan review number 162-23, 451 Essex Street, Fazio Enterprises, Inc., on our next meeting, Wednesday, March 29th, 2023.
Is there a second, please? Seconded by Flannery. Motion was by Beckwith. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will again call the roll. Sarah Bartley.
Yes.
Ellen Flannery.
Yes?
George Gomes.
Yes.
Rodney Sinclair.
Yes.
Derek Beckwith.
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. We're also asked to set a public hearing for the waiver of frontage and definitive subdivision plan for 9 Kernwood Avenue. The applicants are Nathan and Monica Seavey.
Same.
Madam Chair, I move to set the public hearing for the waiver of frontage and definitive subdivision plan at 9 Kernwood Avenue for Wednesday, March 29,
2023.
2023.
Is there a second on the motion, please?
Second.
Okay, this time the motion was by Flannery and the second was by Beckwith. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley.
Yes.
Ellen Flannery.
Yes.
George Gomes.
Yes.
Rodney Sinclair.
Yes.
Derek Beckwith.
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson. Yes. Do I presume that that's one of those that we see over there a lot, over on Ryle side, sort of those large lots that they want to subdivide?
I haven't looked at it too closely yet, but probably. yeah.
Probably, yeah. It's, I just think it's funny how they're,
They're always over there.
yeah, they're cropping up and they're always over there, yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, our next agenda item is number 11, and it is the approval of minutes. Has everyone had the opportunity to review? Let's start with October 4th, 2022.
Yeah, and these we looked at last month, and then
Did we not-
Derek noted some
Oh, that's
larger
right.
changes, so I've made those. I hopefully made them all. Ms. Flannery managed to yet find more typographical errors.
I wasn't alone.
She's an eagle
She
eye.
was not alone.
I wasn't alone this win, thank you.
So
But they're
there are
just
some
typos and scrivener's
typographical
errors?
scrivener's errors, yeah.
All right, well, I would welcome a motion on this.
Madam Chair, I move that the planning board approve the the public meeting minutes from our October 4th, 2022 meeting as amended.
Is there a second, please? Seconded by Flannery. Any discussion? Nope, I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley,
Yes.
Ellen Flannery,
Yes.
George Gomes,
Yes.
Rodney Sinclair,
Yes.
Derek Beckwith,
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. Minutes for October 15th, 2022?
That would be November. The only other ones I sent you were February 13th. I just
February
did
13th.
not had time to review the others yet, so.
We approved up to the 4th? Is that what we did before? Or
You
did we
approved
approve-
October 25th
Okay, yeah.
at the last meeting, but held October 4th. And then November, December, January, I still need to preview for you.
Okay.
I should just give them to you. You guys can. I'm just kidding. I prefer not to do that.
So
Not
do-
fair.
All right. But we have February 13th.
Yes. They were very easy. Very short, at least.
Oh, was that our really short
Our
meeting?
shortest- Shortest meeting in the history of the planning
Yes.
board.
Oh, those are
Now,
great.
is that considered a Scrivener's or not, what I noted? Because the vote was 6-1-0, and it should be 6-0-1.
601.
I usually do it that way. That's true. Yeah,
No,
maybe,
it's-
yeah, that's a
it's an
Scrivener's. We'll just
abstention.
flip that.
It's a Scrivener, yeah.
That's what I'm asking, is it a Scrivener or is
Yeah.
it not? Okay.
Okay, welcome a motion on this.
I move to accept the minutes of February 13th, 2023 for the Beverly Planning Board as amended.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Beckwith. I'm not even asking about discussion. Sarah Bartley,
Yes.
Ellen Flannery,
Yes.
George Gomes,
Yes.
Rodney Sinclair,
Yes.
Derek Beckwith,
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. Okay, do we have any other new business? We already moved our meeting.
Yep.
I have a question.
Yes.
So are we down to, do we have 2 open seats?
Yep.
Just curious. I was just making sure my math was,
I thought
Yeah, we are down, yeah, Wayne is absent, but we are down to, we were down 1 open seat, and Andrea stepped off, so we are down 2 open seats. We're trying to, feel free to spread the word if you have any colleagues. We're trying to get, recruit new volunteers, as always, to serve on the boards and commissions. There is a form on the city webpage to submit letters of interest or interest. And then, but I always ask people to contact me as well, just because then I can kind of control it and make sure to keep it moving. We just need people to submit a letter of interest and a resume.
Okay. We will see if we can pass the word. Okay, I'd welcome a motion to adjourn then, if there's nothing else. Is there anything else by anybody?
Nope.
All right, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. Do I have a second?
Without objection. You don't have to take roll call. Adjourn, you don't have to vote.
George, not,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh.
we're done whether George likes it or not.
But you
So
can.
on motions, what did Richard used to say?
Something is always in order.
It's something is always in order, yeah, all right. And never something.
Never subject to,
Never I don't know. Anyway,
never
ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Nice job tonight, everybody.
thank you, Ellen.
That was a heck of a lot different than we thought it was gonna be.
Can you imagine when
Thanks, everybody.
Shorter.
we actually heard those?
I know.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks,
Thanks,
George. Take
George.
care.
Thank you, George.
Matt, thank you.